Today's story was written by Black Volumes. Links in the description below. Poor Kitty, my 10-year-old, cried. Annie scooped a teensy gray kitten out of an abandoned cardboard box on our road. It wasn't the feline's fetching features that won me over. Not the adorable bright red collar with Mr. Slippers colorfully scrawled on its tag. No, it was my daughter's face. I'm a soft touch, and those big brown eyes of hers were swimming with hopeful tears. Listen, Puss in Boots, I said, referring not to Mr. Slippers, but to Annie and her adorable eyes. He has a collar, so you know we need to try to find his owners, right? But someone left him in a cardboard box on the side of the... Look, I'll put up some found posters, then I'll take him to the vet. I said. It was the first time I'd seen my daughter genuinely joyous since her mother died. It had been a harrowing year. A person feels grief twofold when they see it in their child's face. But Mr. Slippers seemed like he could be the answer to our problems. Of course, before either of us became too attached, I took the cat directly to the vet. If he were microchipped, I wouldn't have wanted to get into any trouble. No chip. Definitely an abandoned kitty. The vet somberly told me. Nothing tying him to anyone else, other than his collar. If Mr. Slippers likes you, then keep him. When I picked up Annie from school, I told her the good news. She gleefully embraced me, and Mr. Slippers was quickly initiated into the family. Over the coming weeks, Annie played with him every day. He grew quickly. Far too quickly. But it wasn't until one particular Saturday outing to the park that fear started to slither into my heart. May I bring Mr. Slippers? Annie politely pleaded. I rolled my eyes and smiled. Cats don't really join humans on walks. But he wants to go on the lead, she insisted. I laughed. Have you been talking to him? Annie nodded furiously, scowling at me. I didn't want to rock the boat. Mr. Slippers seemed to be aiding her grieving process, and her happiness eased the ache in my gut. I begrudgingly agreed, stifling the urge to laugh along with the passers-by at the cat on the lead. Mr. Slippers needs to go to the bathroom, Annie suddenly said. I swallowed another giggle, offering my daughter a valiant attempt at a straight face. I nodded, and Annie let Mr. Slippers off his lead. However, when he returned, a wave of terror coursed through my body. He wasn't in the same state as a few minutes earlier. There was blood on his smiling lips. Yes, he was smiling. A real-life Cheshire cat. I'm certain of it, though I never told anyone. What's on your face, Mr. Slippers? Annie gasped. I cleared my throat, bending down to pick up the cat. Let me clean you up, pal. Of course, any attempts to wipe the blood off his face only seemed to spread it more deeply into his fur. And it wasn't just on his lips. Mr. Slippers' gray coat was stained a deep, unsettling red. I know cats are predators, But you didn't see the conniving look on Mr. Slipper's face. You didn't see the inordinate amount of blood. What were you hunting? I asked the gray bundle in my arms as we strolled back to the car. When we arrived home, I gave Mr. Slippers a bath. I didn't want Annie to get a good look at him. It was as I mindlessly scrolled down the town's Facebook page that I saw something truly disconcerting. Some things run riot in the local park. Found dead squirrels and birds everywhere, ripped to shreds. Kids were traumatized. Absolutely gross. Clean it up, Council. I wanted to give Mr. Slippers the benefit of the doubt, given that he had a rough start to life. But he had a sinisterly stoic disposition that terrified me beyond measure. And when I looked up from my phone, I was horrified to see the cat sitting upright in the bath, legs straight, as if he were a person. He wasn't smiling or sulking. He wasn't doing anything but watching me. His endless black eyes burrowed into my soul. That petrified me more than his slaughtering spree in the park. The following Monday, I saw something that really made my skin tighten. On the lampposts of our street, my found Mr. Slippers posters had been covered. Plastered over them, there were dozens of missing Richie posters. A young boy, no older than Annie, was beaming from a heartbreaking photo. I had a terrible feeling in my gut, and that feeling heightened as I drove Annie home at the end of the day. There were more missing posters, but not for the same child. Emma and Sam. Dozens and dozens of posters for the 3 missing children. I had a haunting suspicion that the horror lived very close to home. So, that evening, I slept on the floor of Annie's room. A sleepover on a school night. She asked excitedly. "Don't get too used to it." I replied, smiling weakly. I couldn't let her see the thinly veiled terror that was swimming beneath the surface of my face. Mr. Slippers could join us. My daughter giggled, not so subtly asking for permission. My heart slowed. "Not tonight, Annie. Sleep tight." She huffed. "Okay. Night, Dad." I did manage to briefly sleep, but I had a feverish nightmare. A horrible dream of scratching sounds on the bedroom door, an avalanche of missing children posters, and then, finally, blood-stained hairballs filling my mouth. I woke in a terrified sweat around 1 a.m. My eyes were immediately drawn to Annie's wide-open bedroom door. I shot my gaze to her bed, and my chest loosened a little bit when I saw that she was safely snoring away. But then I heard a horrifying crunching. The undeniable sound of a midnight feast. I turned my head to the corner of the room and clutched my mouth with both hands before I could scream. Standing on his two hind legs, looking comfortably bipedal, was Mr. Slippers. Not only that, he looked far taller, too. His hind legs had lengthened, and his front legs looked more like arms. Lit by the yellow glow of Annie's nightlight, the humanoid thing was feasting on something in its front paws. That's when a sickening sensation overcame me. I pulled the blanket off of my quivering body and screamed. My left foot was gone. Blood stained the carpet in its place, but I couldn't understand how I hadn't felt a thing. I couldn't understand how Mr. Slippers had stitched up the stump. I shakily sprang up, supporting myself on my right foot, wobbling unsteadily. I eyed the frightening feline in the corner of the room. It smiled as it tucked into my severed foot before my eyes. I limped over to Annie. As she started to stir, I quickly stopped her from removing her eye mask. "We're going to play a game." I trembled. "No peeking." The munching from the corner of the room abruptly stopped. Mr. Slippers was playing a game of his own. I thought of the missing children and wondered whether they were dead. Of course, as horrible as it sounds, I realized that might be kinder than the alternative. 3 limbless, half-alive, terrified kids in some lightless lair that Mr. Slippers had created, perhaps deep in the park. With Annie on my back, I hobbled along the landing. But a scurrying noise suddenly stopped me. Tiny, padding paws. Fearfully, my eyes scanned the carpet. Nothing. My gaze was slowly drawn to the ceiling. And there he clung, Mr. Slippers. As the silently smiling cat dropped, I screamed and hurtled down the stairs, wincing at every painful step on my footless stump. Limping towards the front door, I felt Annie's fingers dig into my chest. "Dad, I don't like this game," she whimpered. "Don't take off that eye mask," I firmly instructed. I clumsily unlocked the latch and started to open the front door, but a searing sensation gripped me, more agonizing than any pain I've ever felt. Clinging to my left stump, Mr. Slippers was sinking his teeth into my ankle. I shrieked, feeling his fangs tear at my skin, trying to take another pound of flesh. Grabbing the side of the open door for support, I swung my right foot at the abnormally shaped cat, and it connected squarely with his hefty body. The abomination disconnected from my leg and flew through the darkened entryway of my house. Blood gushing from the reopened wound on my stump. I painfully hobbled into the middle of the street, screaming for help. House lights turned on, and neighbors flooded onto the scene, calling emergency services. Annie and I have been staying with her grandparents for the past few weeks, but I was brave enough to return to the house yesterday. There were no signs of the humanoid feline. Of course, I know he's still out there. So this is a warning. If you find a cat with Mr. Slippers on his collar, get as far away from him as possible. Do not invite him into your home.